And there we have it, the dreaded, though very common, P0410.
Not sure if you can hear that sound, but it's on right now.
And here we go. Wow. And there we have it, the valve has now been separated from the engine. Here you can see the old part and the new one going in. Well, all right, welcome to the channel, and today we're working on this 2005 GMC Envoy. This Envoy, although from 2005, only has 46,300 original miles on it. That being said, it is from 2005 and it does have a check engine light on. If I go ahead and plug in the scanner, we can read that code and find out what it is. And there we have it, the dreaded, though very common, P0410. This is a code for the secondary air injection system. This Envoy is equipped with the 4.2-liter inline-6 engine, and looking a little deeper here, we have this air injection valve located just underneath the air intake tube. This part right here is a very common failure point for the secondary air injection system. Underneath the Envoy, looking towards the engine, if we follow this hose back, you can see the air injection pump itself. This thing right here. And this is another common failure point in the system. And lastly, just off the side of that pump, we have this gray relay. And this relay can be another common failure point. So in the case of my Envoy, which part is actually to blame here? I already did a little poking around, and my suspicion is this valve right under the hood. These valves tend to fail internally due to water and corrosion, and I'm really not going to know the condition of this valve until I remove it. And the reason I'm not suspecting the actual pump itself is because when you first turn the car on, you can hear this thing run for about 30 seconds. It sounds a little something like this. Not sure if you can hear that sound, but it's on right now. And the pump just turned off. And at this point in my diagnosis, we know that if the pump is running, well, then the relay is working as well. And that vacuum cleaner-like sound all but confirms that that pump and relay are functioning properly. I went ahead and disconnected this intake duct, so now I can move it out of the way and we can get right to the valve. As I stated earlier, these valves can fail due to water and corrosion. So what do you say we take this hose off and see if any water comes out? I've already got the clips loosened up just so I can pull it off. And here we go. Wow. Look at the water dripping out of there. And right there, you can see inside of this tube is wet. We had some water drip out right when I disconnected it, you can see here. So based off of everything I've shown you so far, including this water issue here at the valve, I think it's pretty safe to say that the valve is our issue. To remove this valve, I only have to remove these two nuts. There's one here and one on the other side that also holds the transmission fluid dipstick. And it turns out it's actually not a nut, it is a bolt. And there we have it, the valve has now been separated from the engine. All right, and here is the old valve. And already looking inside the hole here, I can see water corrosion. And looking even deeper inside, we can definitely see this thing is rusted and corroded. And to take it even a step further, I went ahead and removed the screws, and we'll separate this thing and have a look inside. You and I are gonna be seeing the inside of this thing at the same time, so here we go. Okay, so it's not exactly the area that I thought we were going to be seeing, but hey, it still looks pretty dang dirty to me. And wet, actually. You can see moisture there. And even a little deeper in, we can pull this out, which reveals the plunger and even more corrosion. And even deeper still, I've tried to pry out that plunger there. You can see it's separated, but it's just not wanting to move. So I don't know if that non-movement is normal, but to me, it seems that more than likely this is the cause of our problem. This plunger has been frozen in place. And fussing with it even a little more, I've actually started to get this plunger to be able to move back and forth pretty easily. And interestingly, although I have damaged it at this point, I can hear something happening inside when I move it. So now that I've been messing with this plunger for a bit, you can see as I move it out, it wants to pull itself right back in. When I started doing this, the plunger didn't want to move at all. So I think we found the very source of our problem. This plunger was corroded and stuck in place. To begin the process of installing the new part, I'm first going to clean the gasket mating surface. I'm just using a nylon bristled brush here just to try to remove the big chunks of gasket that were left. I'm then following it up with an ultra fine sanding pad. Not trying to put any scratch marks in the metal, just trying to remove that old gasket material. And now I'm going to take my vacuum and clean out the ports and all the dust that was created. And here you can see the old part and the new one going in. This new part is AC Delco OEM. I'll put a link for it down in the description below. Because these bolts used are steel and the metal they're going into is aluminum, I'm going to apply a little Permatex anti-seize. I can tell from the factory there was some sort of white stuff on this bolt, and I'm assuming it was either some kind of anti-seize or thread locker. And so I'm going to go ahead and use this anti-seize on the bolt. And looking at the new gasket, you can see there is an arrow in the top, and that is going to point towards the front of the vehicle. So when installed, it should be in this position here. I now have the new part in place, the gasket in place, anti-seize on the bolts, and now I'm tightening them by hand. And with that anti-seize, this new valve is fully installed. I'll now plug the electrical connector back in. And I also can't forget to reattach this transmission dipstick tube back into place. Before I go ahead and reattach this hose, there's one thing I want to do underneath the car. Because I had water come out of the hose connected to the valve, I thought it'd be a good idea to disconnect these two hoses here and check for water here also. To disconnect, all you do is squeeze down on this here, and once you have the clips disconnected, you can then just pull the hose. And now we can dump it and see if any water comes out. All right, well this one seems to be okay. And here goes the second one. And that one seems to be okay too, although there were a few drips of water that came out, but not much. And with that, everything is put back together. The hoses here are reattached. So let's start the car. I'll go ahead and erase the P0410 code. And now we'll start it up and see if the code comes back. No check engine light yet. Well, the car's been running for a few minutes, and so far we have no check engine light. Now, I did go ahead and buy the rest of the components to the system. I bought the pump and the relay, just in case I found fault with those and needed to replace those. But it looks like in this case, the valve was the only problem we had. The engine is now idling nice and smoothly. I guess it's time to take it out on a drive. Now, I do know from my initial diagnostic procedure, when I cleared the codes, the check engine light did come right back the very next time we drove it. Well, all right, I think that does it. I just took this thing out on a long test drive, and I had 0 check engine lights, 0 issues. And like I was saying before, during the initial diagnosis, when I cleared the check engine code, the next time I drove it, it came right back. So for me, this is confirmation that the problem is fixed. That P0410 code was simply that valve that was corroded due to water intrusion, and the car is currently running, and you can see there are no check engine lights at all. So if you have the P0410 code, make sure you not only check the valve that I just replaced, but you also need to check that pump and the relay. All 3 of them are common failure points, but for me, it was just the valve. I did buy all of the parts necessary to fix the problem on Amazon, and I will link all 3 of those down in the description below. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and also, if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. You can check out the website at oneroadgarage.com, and you can also see me on Instagram at oneroadgarage. I'm Jimmy for One Road, and I will see you in the next one.